everybody, welcome to today's webinar on creating and using macros inside your EHR visits. I'm Brad Peterson. I'm one of the EHR specialists, and I will be showing you how to do this. So we're going to walk through this step by step, creating macros and using them inside your EHR visits. So step one is going to be to create a patient that you can use for creating macros. You need an absolutely blank patient. The reason why will make more sense as we go along, and I kind of explain some of the other stuff. So you're going to want to go to your patients. I'll just call this guy blank macro, create a new one. It doesn't matter if you fill out any of his demographic information, except for I think you need the date of birth before you can get out of here. But once I have a blank macro patient, then what I want to do is come down here to the EHR tab and just start a new visit. Now, if you have several different types of templates like this, you need to go into the template from which you want to create the macro. So in this example, I'm going to create a couple macros just inside a physician exam for the physician to be able to use when they're entering their findings and plan and diagnoses and stuff. So I'm just going to use my general exam here, and I'm going to come into here. So what I kind of want to explain for the reason that you need a blank patient is that as I go through this, anything that I fill out will become part of the macro. It doesn't matter which page it's on inside your exam. If you save the macro with something filled out, it will also become part of the macro. So why do we need a blank patient? Well, let's say that I open a patient that I already have, and they have data that keeps pulling forward exam to exam, so they already have allergies in their allergy grid and medications in their medication grid and their past family social history filled out. Well, if I save a macro, well, when that stuff is filled out, and then a new patient comes in and I use my macro for that new patient, it will automatically fill in the allergies and medications from that patient you were in when you created the macro. So that's why it's very important to have a blank patient. So you will not ever save a real exam for this patient. When you go to your patient screen, this should always be blank. If for some reason you accidentally save an exam for this patient, you will need to create a new patient. I know we have our new delete function where you can delete an exam. That's not good enough because some of that static data will still be kind of in the background. So if you accidentally save a visit, you'll need to create a brand new patient to be creating your macros with. All right, so let's jump into this, and I'll show you some examples on how to do this. Now, if you look up here in the visit description, you are going to put in the name of your macro, how you want it to be saved. Up at the top, when you look across the menu option, there's one called macro. When I push it, you can see right now that it's blank. Whatever I type in right here and then save my macro, from then on, when I click on macro, you're going to see this title right there. So you're going to want to categorize your macros to make them easier to find because it alphabetizes them in this list up here. Some people end up with 20, 25 macros, so it might come halfway down the screen or more. So if you categorize them, then they'll be easier to find. Now, the way I suggest to categorize them is something like this. So give them a category like that, maybe a little dash, and then whatever your macro is going to be called. So we're going to call this yearly no surgery. All right, so what's going to happen is I'm going to use this macro for anybody that falls into this category of they're coming back for a yearly cataract evaluation, or maybe this is even their first cataract evaluation, but then they're not going to have surgery today, and I'm going to follow them yearly. So what I want to do is I want to fill out everything that I want to be part of this macro. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, well, first off, they have a small cataract, all right? And let's say that everything else is normal and everything below is normal. So they really are just only cataract, and they don't have any other problems, and and that's it. So I filled out my physician exam. I'm even going to come in here and I'm going to put in the diagnosis. I'm going to say that it's in both eyes. I'm even going to put in an impression of early. I'm going to come down to my plan, and you can type in here if you want, whatever you want. I have a few quick plans, and probably most of you have something similar. And I'll say yearly cataract will follow yearly. Early cataract, excuse me. So I'll put in my little spiel about that I'm going to have them come back in a year. Then you're going to want to fill out any other information. That little quick plan filled this out for me, but I'm also going to make it part of this entire macro. So 1 year cataract check is when I want them to come back. Maybe I even want to say that every time they come in, I give them a handout about cataract or something for each one of these patients. So again, I'm filling out everything I want to. Now, this isn't limited to just one page. If I wanted to come to the tech workup and fill out something in here, then I could. I wouldn't recommend filling out anything from this area because this is pretty unique per visit. But maybe a simple chief complaint, yearly cataract follow-up. I guess I should write it in the right area. Yearly cataract follow-up, maybe even HPI I would want to put in there. But no matter what page you're on, anything you type is going to become part of this macro. So this is my main part. So let's save this macro now. I've got everything I want filled in. I've got my description filled in. I'm going to come up to File. I'm going to come down and click on Save Macro. It's going to give you the message that the macro was saved. You'll click OK, and then you're back into your exam. From here, I'm going to close the exam without saving. Remember, you never want to save an exam for this patient. And now my macro is saved and ready to use. So, so let's say a new patient comes in. This is a new patient, or maybe even it's not a new patient, but they fall into that category of being a cataract check, early cataract. They don't need surgery. All right. So I start my new exam, and I go through everything that I need to go through. Okay. And then I'm going to come, and I get to this point, and the doctor says, "Yep, this falls into my category. They're only a cataract, nothing else wrong. I want to follow them back in a year." You can come up to macro, click on cataract, and boom, it fills everything in that you had as part of your macro. If I jumped back to that chief complaint and HPI page, even filled in that chief complaint that I had filled in there. So I've seen practices do technician macros where they'll label their category technician, and it will say like technician general cataract, and it will fill out chief complaint and maybe a general HPI, slowly decreasing vision in both eyes over the last year or something like that. So you can pretty much, if you could think of it, you could probably do it with these macros. Let me do one more example. I'm going to close this down, and I don't want to save. And I'm going to do a couple more things that are more in depth this time. Again, it looks like I need to wait for my system to catch up. These online meetings always slow it down just a bit. Okay, so I'll open a new exam with my Blake patient. Now, let's say that I have this macro that I created before. I want it to be almost exactly the same, but just a couple things different. So the easiest thing to do is to come in and run my macro, and then I'm going to change the things that I want changed. So maybe this one is now 4+ NS, and I'm going to delete my plan because now we are going to do surgery. All right, so I'm going to fill everything out how I want it. I got my diagnosis now as a total senile cataract, right eye, it's advanced. Here's my thing about them needing surgery and risk and benefits. Next time they should come back to clinic is for their one-day post-op. If I look at my orders, and I know that each one of your pages is going to look a little different than this, but I can put in an order for an A scan, I can put in an order for cataract surgery, and pretty much fill out anything, any part of this that I want. Now, with my visit description, though, I'm going to call it something a little bit different. I'm going to categorize it with my first little blurb there. The second thing I'll do is put some maybe surgery required. Now, in this case, you can see that I did right eye. So if I wanted to get that in-depth or that detailed, I could make this one right eye. I could change it and then change this description and save and then save again. So I have one that says surgery required right eye, one that says surgery required left eye. You could do right eye first, then left eye first, then right eye. You can have a lot of different scenarios in here. But once I get everything where I want it, I get my description where I want it. Again, I'm going to click File, Save Macro, then click OK. I'm going to close down the exam without saving. Okay, so again, scenario where a new patient comes in. And I'm waiting for my system to catch up again here. There we go. Okay, so now I want to use that second macro that I just created. So I'm going to come to the physician desktop here, or your physician exam or your assessment plan, or wherever. It doesn't really matter which page you run this from. It'll still fill in every field from every page that you had as part of that macro. So let's go up and run our macro now, our second macro with surgery required. See how it alphabetized them. Okay, so it filled out everything for us. It even filled out our orders, and then we can save. Now, one of the things I want to show you is if you already have something filled out, when you run the macro, it will not change it. So, for example, let's say that somebody comes in, and yes, they fall into the category that they have a mature cataract, it's ready to be taken out, surgery required, but they also may have some trace flare and cell and some ptosis. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to give them some ptosis, I'm going to give them trace flare and cell, same in the other eye. Now, if I run my macro, anything that I already have filled out will not be replaced by what's in my macro. It'll ignore those fields. So I'll run my macro now, see how it left alone the things that I had put in, but it filled everything else in that had not been filled in yet. So even if this patient doesn't fall into the exact detailed description of your macro, you can still use those macros to speed things up a ton by putting in the few things that are different first and then running your macro. All right, there's one more thing that I want to show you, and that's what happens if you want to change, delete, edit your macros. All right, so let's go back. I'm going to leave this open, but let's head to our home screen here, and we'll close our patient screen. All right, if you click on File from your home screen, Electronic Health Record, and EHR Setup, you'll see Macros category. So inside here, you're going to see a list of all the macros. Now, you can't really add from here. You have to add from inside the EHR visit. When you click on Edit, you're really only editing the description. So maybe I really don't want this to be called that. I only want it to be called surgery required. Then I can edit it in there. If I want to delete them, I can highlight it and click delete from here, and it will take them off. Now let's say that you have a macro that you actually want to edit the details inside. Well, you can't really edit them per se, but you can run the macro, change the things that you want to edit, resave it, and then come in and delete the old one. So for example, that surgery required, I decided, well, I want to have a few changes to that one. So I'll go back to my exam. I'll make those few changes that I want. Then well, actually I should run my macro first, all right? Then I'll give it a new description. Maybe something like that. Same thing, I'll save the macro. So then once I have that, so I ran it first, so it pulled up what I had in that macro before, then I changed it and I resaved it. So essentially I did edit it, but the thing is you have to save it as a new visit description or a new macro description. Then if I'm really replacing the other one, then I would come back in File, Electronic Health Record, EHR Setup, Macros, and I would delete that old one because my new one's right there with the edits that I made. So it's actually, once you get the hang of it, it's not very hard to do these macros. They can be very powerful. They can really speed up your exam and help you along through the process. We know that it gets tedious, and filling out those boxes sometimes takes a long time. So hopefully this will help you. This will be posted on our website, so that if you forget the things we've talked about, or you want a refresher course, you'll be able to go out to our website, look in the training videos, and this is being recorded so that you can watch it again if needed. All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and hopefully this helps you in your clinic.